Tyrion Lannister's fingers drifted over the velvet folds of the curtain, feeling the heat of the afternoon sun bleeding through the latticework above the Queen's ballroom. He had played this moment over in his mind 100 times on the road from the Eyrie, the sickening grin on Joffrey's face as the boy king ordered Ned Stark seized, Jaime's absence, Cersei's poisoned assurances that all would be well. He had stowed every sickening memory in the same corner of his mind where hurt and rage blurred together, the same corner where Tywin's jibes lived. Now he tugged the curtain wider and watched the bright scene playing out below, white and gold courtiers arrayed like tame doves around their new monarch. Joffrey lounged halfway off his throne, legs splayed, one elbow crooked over the gilded lion armrest. He waved away a steward offering candied figs. The boy's lips were stained purple from the arbor red he was too young to drink, though he gulped it as though it were mother's milk. Beside him, Cersei's green gaze prowled the room, restless and suspicious even amid sycophantic praise. The Queen kept a moderating hand on Joffrey's knee, as if the gentle pressure alone could hold her son's vicious temper in check. But Tyrion knew Joffrey's fury was too large for one woman's fingers. Across the marble floor, Sansa Stark stood rigid as a carved saint, a single step behind the royal dais. Even in the wake of terrible loss, her wolf, her father, her childhood dreams, she carried herself with a reed-slim grace that stirred something pitying in Tyrion's chest. He suspected that if the child squeezed her eyes shut, she could still see her father's blade-damp head upon Baelor's great steps. Yet pity had no place today, nor did hesitation. Tyrion let the curtain fall back into place and turned toward the shadow of the corridor, where Bronn lounged with deceptive casualness against a wall, guttering with torches. In the sellsword's hand was a slim wineskin, and inside the wineskin, a draught of sufficient potency to still the heart of a grown sand steed. The potion had been supplied by Grand Maester Pycelle, whose tremulous voice had unwittingly betrayed the hidden alcove behind the shelves and the files that Tywin ordered prepared for battlefield mercy. Tyrion had discovered that a single golden dragon can make a cowardly old man betray any oath of loyalty. Bronn pulled the thong on the neck of the skin. "No turning back?" he asked, though his flat eyes knew the answer. "If I falter now," Tyrion murmured, "the realm burns. Stannis already means to strike, Renly courts half the south, and the north wants vengeance. But if the wrong boy sits the throne, the fire will be lit from within before their swords ever clash outside the walls." And you truly think Tommen will be different?" Bronn asked. "He is younger, gentler, and most of all he listens." Tyrion exhaled, surprised at the tremor in his throat. Tommen still believes in stories where good men prevail. With someone whispering sense into his ear, he might one day become a good king. Someone like you. If not me, then someone I choose. Tyrion glanced back to the crimson drape. "Keep your cloak fastened. If the wrong eyes trace that wineskin to either of us, you will never reach the steps of the Tower of the Hand." "Then?" Bronn's grin showed teeth sharp as a crow's. "I'll be the shadow at your back, imp. But the killing itself must happen here." Tyrion nodded. "Kingly feasts are noisy things. One more goblet sloshing to the floor will scarcely be heard. We shall pour at the high table, a private honor from the returning hand's son, and none will dare stop us." He drew up the hood of a half-cloak, bearing the Lannister crimson and gold. The heraldic lions shimmered as though alive in torchlight. "Let us play the saints, Bronn, the saints who plant a knife inside the monster's heart." They descended the stairs as a pair of perfumed cousins might, one short, one tall, both dressed in courtly velvet, and joined the swirl of courtiers. Tyrion accepted kisses from sharp-chinned ladies and slapped shoulders with perfumed squires, obscuring his progress with the aura of a man happily returned to King's Landing from a triumphant trial by combat. He was small, yes, but the court had long since learned to mistake his height for harmlessness. They saw only the jester, never the judge. At the foot of the dais, Tyrion bowed so deeply his massive head nearly brushed Joffrey's gilded toes. "My king," he said, pitching his voice to carry over the music, "I beg leave to honor my liege with a draught of the finest arbor gold, a token of my devotion, and a balm to soothe the heat of such a radiant day." Joffrey's pale brows knit, but the promise of wine and flattery softened him. "And what if I refuse your little gift, uncle?" The boy spoke with the affected boredom of one accustomed to endless adoration. Tyrion smiled. "Then I shall carry it back to Casterly Rock and drink to your health alone. But that would break my heart." Cersei leaned close to Joffrey, lips grazing his ear. Her whisper was for the king, but Tyrion read the words easily in her narrowed eyes. Humor him. Humor the dwarf. Joffrey leaned forward, nostrils flaring with something like hunger, not for the wine, Tyrion guessed, but for the sensation of being served. "Pour, then. Let the realm see how generous I am." Tyrion gestured to Bronn, who stepped forward with the wineskin cradled like a newborn. 2 golden goblets waited atop a polished side table beside the throne. Tyrion filled one for the king, one for the queen. Bronn's hand was steady. Tyrion's heart drummed like a war drum. He set Joffrey's goblet higher, Cersei's lower, careful to swap their positions if a servant reached out to rearrange them. When all was done, he knelt again, presenting the cup. Joffrey grasped it in both hands, petulant even in acceptance, and lifted it to the air. "Drink with me, mother," he said. "Let us toast the peace that my reign will bring." Cersei, pride blooming in her cheeks, seized the remaining goblet and raised it. "To his grace," she proclaimed. Together mother and son touched rims and drank. Tyrion did not breathe. A single swallow was enough. Pycelle had promised the draught was swift. Yet Joffrey tipped back the cup eagerly, crimson wine dribbling down his chin. Cersei sipped more delicately, but enough flowed over her tongue to carry the venom. Tyrion bowed deeper to hide his face, listening for the first cough. It came from Cersei. A polite clearing of the throat, nothing more. She dabbed at her lips with a silk kerchief. Then Joffrey laughed. A harsh, wet guffaw that cracked apart as fresh wine splashed against his palate. The sound turned to a strangled rasp. He coughed again, this time violent, and drops of wine flecked the dais. A hush swept the ballroom, as sudden as a candle snuffed by wind. Joffrey's goblet slipped from his grasp and clanged upon the marble. He lurched forward, clutching the arms of the throne, eyes bulging. Tiny red bubbles coated his lips. Cersei half rose, panic flashing. "Sweetling." Joffrey tried to answer but only fumed. A horror-stricken shriek burst from Sansa. Then Bronn moved, swift as a cat, slipping between the king and Tyrion, feigning protective urgency. But his true task was to make space for the dwarf to retreat. Cersei seized Joffrey's shoulders. All around them, courtiers rushed and stumbled. The Kingsguard surged forward too late. Sir Meryn Trant's white cloak flared like a gull's wing as he tried to steady the convulsing boy. Cersei's second cough came harsher. She pressed a hand to her stomach, the kerchief now smeared with pink saliva. Realization dawned in her stare. First disbelief, then certainty fierce as wildfire. Her gaze snapped to Tyrion. He met her eyes and shook his head, projecting shock, sorrow, innocence. But he saw the recognition kindle all the same. The oak-brown eyes of her dwarf brother, shining with the mind she had always feared. Cersei tried to rise to shout for his head, but her legs tangled in her gown. She staggered into Sir Meryn, knocking Joffrey sideways. The king toppled, struck the dais steps, and lay twitching, his coronet rolling loose. It took 60 heartbeats before Joffrey's body stilled. It took fewer for Cersei's knees to give out, for a hush to cloak the hall with dread. Tywin Lannister had once taught his children that power lies where men believe it does. In that moment, Tyrion gathered the shattered fragments of power spilling across the marble and fit them into his palm. He did not flee. Instead, he strode up the throne steps, voice ringing. "Fetch Grand Master Pycelle," he commanded. And the courtiers obeyed out of habit, still seeing the hand's badge below his collarbone. He knelt beside Cersei, who gasped like a fish on a dock. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck and declared her pulse weak, but present. "Carry the Queen Regent to her bedchamber at once. Attend her." The Kingsguard leapt to obey. Ser Boros hoisted the unconscious queen in his massive arms, white cloak trailing through spilled wine. Servants dashed for linen, for water, for pastel. No one noticed when Bronn scooped the discarded coronet and slipped it into Tyrion's hands. The realm had lost a boy king but gained a vacuum. Tyrion could feel the howling wind already plucking at every cloak in the ballroom. And he was ready to fill it, if only long enough to seat a gentler prince on that damned iron seat. Enderrow. The day of morning dawned gray and slick with fog rolling off Blackwater Bay. Tyrion stood upon the bridge between Maegor's Holdfast and the Red Keep proper, listening to the morning bells clang for a king barely old enough to shave. Far below, the river ran a sluggish green. Mist curled around merlons like ghostly fingers. The stones wept with dew. Pycelle shuffled toward him, shoulders bent under a fur-lined cloak. Terrible tragedy, my lord. Terrible. His pale eyes darted like minnows, never quite meeting Tyrion's. Indeed. Tyrion clasped his hands behind his back. You examined the body? Yes, yes. Poison without doubt. Strangler, perhaps, or something akin. Tyrion pretended displeasure. It shames me that vintage may have been poured from my own cask. Your chain's links are forged for such tasks. Find the culprit. The Grand Maester swallowed. The Queen Regent lives, by the Seven's mercy. But she cannot rise from her bed. She demands to see you, my lord. Damn. Soon. Tyrion gazed out over the mists, masking triumph with pensiveness. First we must speak of tomorrow's. The realm cannot founder in grief. Pycelle stroked his beard, tugging at a snowy strand with trembling fingers. Who shall sit as regent until her grace recovers? Why, the hand of the king, of course. And I shall do so in my father's stead until Lord Tywin marches south. Tyrion's tone made refusal unthinkable. Send ravens to Harrenhal. Inform Lord Tywin that his grandson is dead, his daughter grievous, and his realm imperiled from every side. He will ride at once. Mennerwinder. Pycelle nodded. And the new king? Tyrion produced the coronet from beneath his cloak. Its rubies smoldered like banked coals. Prince Tommen of the house Baratheon. He let the name hang, heavy with implication. All true-born sons succeed their fathers, or their brothers. The Grand Maester offered a shallow bow. As my lord commands. Tyrion pivoted away, boots clicking on damp stone. Already ravens would be flapping from Maegor's rookeries, black wings slicing mist. Messages to Casterly Rock, to Storm's End, to Old Town. He had drafted each word himself, casting Tommen as a gentle lad wronged by monstrous treachery. Let the Reach believe Renly plotted the poison. Let Dragonstone think the imp framed Stannis. Confusion was the surest armor until he could fashion sturdier mail. In the corridor outside the Queen's apartments, he dismissed the guards and stepped through a heavy oak door into dim candlelight. Cersei lay propped upon a feather bed, skin leached of color, hair clinging damply to her brow. She looked smaller than he remembered, yet her eyes blazed hotter than wildfire. You. Her voice was a knife. Tyrion shut the door and leaned against it. Enmity. Her hands trembled atop the coverlet. I know what you did. Of course. He folded his arms. You always feared I might, yet you never truly believed I had the strength. I will see you dead. Perhaps. He pushed off the door, pacing toward the bedside table, bearing a pitcher of water and an untouched cup. Yet before you dispatch me to hell, consider the realm you claim to love. She spat weakly. Spare me sermons. Very well. Hard truths, then. He set his palms upon the mattress. Joffrey was a tyranny waiting to happen. Had I not struck, half the realm would already be aflame. Now Tommen will take the throne, and peace may yet be salvaged. Peace. She barked a laugh that tore at her throat. Renly marches with half the south. Stannis readies his fleet. Robb Stark calls for your head. You have broken our host's spine. Peace is dead. Tyrion reached for the cup, poured water, and held it to her lips. Cersei hesitated, but thirst conquered hatred. She drank. When she finished, he spoke softly. I have sent ravens naming you the unfortunate victim of the same poison as our son. The hand has sworn vengeance upon the killers and will stop at nothing to defend Tommen's claim. And the hand is you. Until father arrives. Cersei's eyes narrowed. Your plan ends with me in a silent sept and you're ruling beside Tommen. No. It ends with Tommen grown to a man capable of ruling himself. And with me, still alive to guide him. That is all I desire. Madame. Her hand lashed out, weak but sudden. Fingernails raked his cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. Tyrion did not flinch. Take comfort, sister, he whispered. You remain Queen Regent, if you let me keep my head. Cersei fell back upon the pillows, chest heaving. Hatred gleamed in every blink, but Tyrion saw reluctant calculation stirring too. He dabbed his cheek with a handkerchief. Think on it. He left her with the hush of approaching night. In the hallway, Bronn waited, clad now in supple leather and sword belt. How fares her grace, he asked. Alive, angrier than a kicked hornet, and practical as ever. Tyrion brushed dried blood from his cheek. Keep 2 guards of your choosing outside her chamber, and none of her choosing. Bronn's teeth flashed. And summon Varys. I will need his spiders. And no. The spider arrived like a rumor, gliding through hidden passages until he emerged beside Tyrion in the Tower of the Hand. Varys' lavender robe swished as he inclined his shaved head. The city whispers in every alley, my lord. Some swear Renly poisoned the king. Others say Stannis. The small folk grumble that the gods struck down cruel Joffrey themselves. Bedin. Let them whisper. Tyrion dragged a stool closer to the hearth. The fire crackled, casting the eunuch's smooth face in shifting amber. I have tasks for your little birds. First, the High Septon must declare Tommen crowned by the will of the Seven. Second, the City Watch must swear fresh oaths to him. Third, we must keep Lord Stark's headless body far from the Iron Throne's steps. The last may prove difficult, Varys said. The North clamors for their dead. Then we shall grant them ashes and a story. Tyrion sighed. I will send Ned Stark's bones north with all ceremony. And a letter naming me regent. If the young wolf refuses to bend the knee, we remind him that Sansa is still pledged to Tommen. She will not wed Robb's enemy, but she may wed his sovereign liege and bring the North to heel by kindness rather than fear. Varys' eyes glimmered. A clever knot you tie. The clever ones survive. And Cersei? Under guard. Still recovering. Tyrion grimaced. I cannot trust her, but I need her influence among the Westerland's lords. They ride at father's back after all. Varys folded plump hands. I shall spread word of the Queen Regent's strength even as she lies abed. Appearances matter more than realities to most stewards and hedge knights. Tyrion offered a grim chuckle. Then let us spend appearances lavishly. Moonlight drenched the courtyard when the coffin bearing Joffrey's body rolled under the Red Keep's gatehouse. Torches flared, casting jittering shadows on carved lions. The small folk pressed against the walls, some weeping, some muttering. Tyrion rode at the head of the procession, wearing black and crimson, his pony's hooves muffled upon damp cobbles. Behind him trundled the oaken cart draped in golden cloth. 100 candles surrounded the coffin, trembling in the night breeze. Within the city, bells told the hour of the owl. At the Sept of Baelor, the High Septon awaited in midnight robes. He blessed the coffin with rainwater from a silver ewer. Then Tyrion bowed and spoke the words he had rehearsed. Sorrow, vengeance, unbroken resolve. Crowds cheered Tommen's name when prodded by gold-clad Lannister men along the avenues. Not one soul guessed the king's slayer lay hidden in their midst. The poison now gnawed Cersei's innards with cramps, but Tyrion feared her mind more than her knives. His spies told him she sent riders north and west, messages penned within the hour of her waking. He dared not intercept all, for such silence would expose his hand, yet enough were taken that Tywin's reinforcements arrived thrice delayed. Still, the realm shifted. Renly's reach lords paused their march on King's Landing, chattering of an anointed child king whose lion mother lay near death. Stannis' ships massed at Dragonstone but did not yet sail, uncertain whether the boy upon the throne had bastard's blood or true. The North remained on war footing, but each raven Tyrion sent bore promises of Sansa's safety. Every small mercy buys time, he thought, and time buys victory. And when Tywin Lannister finally rode beneath the Lion Gate, crimson pennant snapping, he found his imp son waiting at the head of a column of gold cloaks. The Lord of Casterly Rock dismounted, heavy as a mailed boulder in the dust. His pale eyes swept the courtyard, calculated the arrangement of banners, the posture of every man-at-arms, the tilt of Tyrion's chin. "You sit upon the realm's chest like a vulture," Tywin said without greeting. Tyrion inclined his head. "Only to guard its beating heart. A child upon the throne. A child is preferable to a monster." Tywin's lip curled, but he held his tongue until they strode alone within the throne room. The Iron Throne towered above them, empty save for the memory of sharper edges. "Speak," Tywin commanded. "How came Joffrey to die and Cersei to sicken?" "Poison." Tyrion let the word fall cool as a coin. "Administered by an assassin whose name we have yet to discover." Tywin's gaze pierced him like a spear. "You stand unharmed." "I drank no wine that day." Tywin circled the throne, gauntleted fingers brushing a blade. "Eight court all know your cunning. Should I assume?" "Assume what you wish," Tyrion cut in. "But weigh the cost of assumption. If you strike at me, you shatter the regency we desperately need. You create chaos within chaos, and the city will eat itself." He swallowed hard. "Father, I have purchased us a season of peace. Fragile, yes, but serviceable. Tommen trusts me. Cersei is alive, not executed. The banners still fly." Tywin's silence stretched like a drawn bow. At last he said, "And you would have me maintain the charade? I would have you rule as hand in truth while I remain the dwarf in your shadow. The realm needs your soldiers. Tommen needs your guidance. But you must let me keep the boy's ear. He is frightened. He will not respond to mailed fists alone." "Dentor." Tywin considered. Old stone groaned in the wind outside slitted windows. Finally, Tywin lowered his arms. "Very well. But if war comes, and it will, you will remain at my right hand until victory." Tyrion bowed. "And after victory, we shall see." It was the closest thing to acceptance Tyrion would ever hear from his father. And at Tommen's coronation, the great sept blazed with scented candles. Highborn ladies wore gowns in every hue of spring. Knights shone like freshly minted coins. The Tyrells arrived first, Sir Loras resplendent in rose petals upon green silk. He bent knee at Tommen's feet and offered the reach swords. In exchange, Margaery Tyrell received the boy king's bashful smile behind a spray of ivory lilies. Tyrion sat beside the throne, afire with memory. A haughty beast once lounged there, promising to serve justice with cruel whim. Now a mild child gripped the arms carved of swords, knuckles white with nerves. When the high septon anointed Tommen with 7 oils, Tyrion heard rustles of relief ripple through pews of nobles. A boy could be molded. Monsters could only be slain. Cersei, pale and stiff, watched from a velvet-draped litter in the front row. Her face betrayed nothing, yet Tyrion felt her gaze like a blade at his nape. He offered no victory smirk. This fragile tableau might shatter with a single wrong grin. As the septon placed the crown upon Tommen's curls, the bells tolled again, this time joyous. Their peals sailed out over the rooftops across the Blackwater, beyond the walls. For a heartbeat, the capital believed in peace, and belief was power. And then, that night, the small council convened. Around the table sat Tywin, Tyrion, Varys, Petyr Baelish, and Pycelle. Margaery Tyrell, with sweet-voiced acuity, clasped the Queen Regent's seat as Cersei remained too weak to rise. Littlefinger unfolded maps, Varys recited reports, Pycelle coughed tinctures. But the final decision lay in Tywin's measured nod toward his son. Tyrion faced them. Stannis amasses ships at Storm's End, but he hesitates while ravens whisper of bastardy. We must feed his doubt. Seeds of suspicion will slow his oars. And Renly? Tywin asked. Lord Renly loves tourneys more than war. We invite him to King's Landing for a grand melee, celebrating Tommen's ascent. If he accepts, we clasp him in gold and silk until his ambitions melt. If he refuses, the realm will see him as rebel. Menemasho. Baelish smirked. Renly craves the adoration of crowds. He may well come for the pageantry. And the north. Tywin tapped the map. .e. I propose a pact, Tyrion said. Robb Stark keeps the north and riverlands in peace as wardens under the crown, in exchange for Sansa's marriage and Ned Stark's bones. It grants Tommen an honorable alliance and spares the south a second front. Silence reigned. At length Tywin spoke. Bold, risky, but perhaps preferable to fighting Starks and Baratheons in the same summer. Margaery tilted her head, a rose-perfumed breeze. Tommen whispers that Lady Sansa is kind. A good queen must have kind friends. The words slid across the table like a needle through silk. Tyrion glimpsed Petyr's eyes narrow covetously. The mockingbird coveted the girl. But Tywin's hand closed on the notion first. The proposal will be written before the moon sets. Letters flew. And in Riverrun Solar, Robb Stark read the offer by flickering candlelight. His gray eyes darkened as he imagined Sansa wed to another. Yet the parchment promised Ned's remains, a chance at northern self-rule, and safety for his sisters. Catelyn urged acceptance, tired of war, aching for family. Edmure fretted, but the Blackfish nodded sagely. In the end, Robb dipped his quill and signed his name, Stark of Winterfell, loyal to King Tommen. The young wolf sheathed his claws, for now. When a raven carried the signed treaty back to King's Landing, Tyrion sat alone on the ramparts and breathed the salt air off summer winds. The sunset flooded the sky with Lannister red and Baratheon gold. He had slain a monster to summon this peace, and every droplet of innocent blood spilt henceforth would still stain his hands. Yet for the first time in his life, he felt the realm's weight lift slightly from his crooked shoulders. Still Cersei glared from her window, plotting knives in the night. Still Stannis bided, Renly strutted, Ironborn prowled, dragons stirred across the narrow sea. The Game of Thrones never ended. One merely shifted pieces until death called checkmate. But Tyrion Lannister had made his move, and for a precious season, Westeros breathed. He wondered how many seasons it would take before the realm learned that its savior was the same dwarf it had scorned since birth. Perhaps it never would. Perhaps that was the price. To live and die unknown, the sacrificial pawn who cut down a mad king before the fires could rise. Yet as dusk bled into star-drenched black, Tyrion smiled. For sometimes a pawn, when it reaches the far end of the board, becomes a queen, and he had every intention of playing the game until the last piece fell. Summer found King's Landing trembling on the edge of false serenity. In the weeks after Tommen's coronation, birds nested in the marble mouths of crumbling gargoyles. The street singers traded dirges for ballads, and small folk children dared one another to run barefoot beneath the iron gate, where the gold cloaks no longer bothered to keep order with mailed fists. Yet the scent beneath the city's perfumes remained half-rancid fear, half-rotten hope, an aroma Tyrion Lannister tasted on every breeze as he limped the narrow passages of power. He spent his dawns in Maegor's Holdfast, rousing Tommen to lessons of history and statecraft. At first the boy blinked sleep-heavy eyes, fearful that some new cruelty hid behind each question. But Tyrion coaxed understanding by weaving the histories into fables. The Maegor who ruled with hammers and died alone upon his sword seat, the Baelor who fasted until his wits withered, the Aenys who let councils paralyze him with endless arguments. Strength without mercy breeds revolt, Tyrion would say, but mercy without strength invites wolves. Tommen listened, cheeks flushed, and repeated the words like a catechism. When lessons ended, Tyrion pressed a carved wooden lion into the boy's palm. A token, he explained, of quiet courage. Clench it in your fist when you wish to roar, he whispered. Tommen smiled and slipped the little lion beneath his pillow each night. Afternoons belonged to the small council. Tywin dominated one end of the table, granite-faced, surveying ledgers and lists of levies. Margaery Tyrell presided at the other, her very presence a bouquet that could soften a room. Cersei attended sometimes, swathed in veils, claiming lingering weakness. Yet Tyrion felt her watchfulness coil tighter with each passing session. When matters veered too near the events of that fatal feast, provisions of wine tithes, security of the royal dais, her gloved hands knotted in her lap until the knuckles blanched, and she would ask to be excused. Evenings Tyrion reserved for Varys spiders. They brought whispers like silent tributaries. Stannis had beheaded 4 knights in Sunglass Chapel for murmured doubts of his claim. Renly had accepted the invitation to Tommen's tourney but sent contingents ahead to gauge the capital's mood. Balon Greyjoy had seized 3 Mirish traders off Cape Kraken and boasted that the seas no longer answered to a child king. Each morsel Tyrion weighed, tasting for iron or gold. He dispatched blinkered ravens north and south bearing promises backed by casterly coffers, and into each letter he folded a sliver of fear, gentle pressure reminding lords how swiftly his father's wrath might fall. But nights belonged to his dreams, and in dreams Tyrion often saw Joffrey again, froth dribbling down his chin, tiny hands clawing at invisible serpents in his throat. The sight did not rouse guilt so much as dread. The deed itself felt strangely distant now, as though committed by another dwarf who had stepped forward, struck, and vanished. Yet the consequences clung to him like cobwebs. If ever they tore, everything would come crashing down. One autumn morning, a morning crisp enough that puffs of steam curled from the nostrils of the castle's dray horses, Sir Meryn Trant arrived unannounced in the Tower of the Hand. He bowed, helm tucked beneath an arm, and announced that the Queen Regent required her brother's presence at once. Tyrion set aside parchments detailing grain prices in the Reach and followed, Bronn at his shoulder with hand resting lightly on dagger hilt. Cersei's chambers smelled of lavender oil and locked rage. She stood by the arched window, pale hair unbound, shoving wax-sealed scrolls into a long walnut chest. The chest's lid glimmered with gold leaf lions, but the hinges creaked like bones. When Tyrion entered, she slammed it shut and spun, green eyes sparkling with the same fever that once crowned King Maegor's brow. "Did you know?" she said before he could speak. "That Pycelle has been feeding father a tale of poison brewed in Dragonstone. That Stannis somehow bribed kitchen servants to slip the strangler into the king's goblet. A perfect fable. Except Stannis has never met those servants, and the cooks who served that day now lie buried beneath Potter's Field." She advanced. "You killed my son." He waved Bronn from the room. The sellsword hesitated. Tyrion barked his name once, and the door clicked shut behind him. "I ended a tyrant," Tyrion corrected softly. "I saved another son. Yours." "Lies." She stalked closer. "I saw your face when the wine spilled. You looked relieved." "Relieved it was quick," he parried, voice low. "Relieved my nephew did not die screaming in wildfire or coughing on pox. Cersei, hear me. Joffrey was beyond control. Even you trembled at his tantrums." Then, a flicker, fear, crossed her. She buried it beneath fury. "Tommen is weak. The wolves will scent that. Already the Tyrells creep around him like ivy around a crumbling tower. So we shore the tower." Tyrion turned to the window. From this height, the city sprawled in dappled sunlight, domes and spires catching fire where the rising sun kissed them. "Renly's tourney is 3 days hence. The lords of the Reach, the Stormlands, even some Dorne, they will see Tommen in shining mail, hear him decree clemency for low-born fisherfolk. They will smell the scent of a gentle king and think it safe to fold their banners. Gentle, yes, but guided. Guided by you. By many voices," Tyrion allowed, "yours included, if you wish it." He faced her. "You speak of wolves. Wolves devour solitary prey. But a pack." He gestured between them. "Our house is a pack of lions. Lions do not quarrel in view of dogs." Cersei studied his scarred face. Her lips trembled, then firmed. "Swear on our mother's memory you did not pour the poison." He met her eyes. "I swear." A tremulous breath left her, a breath he realized she had been holding for weeks. The rage dimmed, replaced by cold suspicion tempered with reluctant hope. Then we find the true culprit. We will, he promised. Together. It was not forgiveness, but it was leash enough. For now. By the afternoon of Renly's arrival, the tourney grounds outside the Dragon Gate thrummed like a hive. Silken pavilions glittered in house colors. Tyrell green and gold, Tarly Hunter's green, Penrose sky blue, a solitary martel spear sun, beating overhead beside fluttering red cloth, wherein perched a smoking viper, the envoy from Sunspear who had come to see how a city mourned while bracing for war. The lists themselves stretched broad as a riverbed, churned by hooves, flanked by newly carpentered grandstands. At the far end rose a wooden dais wrapped in banners, bearing the crowned stag of Baratheon quartered with the lion of Lannister, King Tommen's new device. Tyrion watched from the shade of the royal box. Beside him Tommen bounced with a boy's anxious delight, tiny fists clutching the edge. Behind stood Ser Meryn, Ser Balon Swan, and Sir Loras Tyrell, guest champion and living embodiment of chivalric legend, sunlight glinting on his white enameled armor. To Tommen's other side sat Margaery, hair woven with red roses, gown cut to suggest maiden modesty while slyly hinting promise. Each time Tommen leaned to ask who rode next, Margaery's fingers brushed his sleeve, gentle as petals. The boy's cheeks flushed redder than Lannister crimson. Renly made his entrance astride a midnight charger, antlered helm under one arm. Even Tyrion, who considered tournaments an expensive excuse for vanity, had to admire the showmanship. Sapphires flashed on the stad's eyes. Polished iron picked out every sinew of the beast carved upon the steel breastplate. Behind him thundered a retinue of stormlords, bright laughter, streaming banners, music pouring from pipes. King's Landing gasped, dazzled. Tyrion pictured how Joffrey would have greeted such pageantry, with sneer, with crossbow, perhaps even with arrows fired into the air for sport. Tommen instead clapped like a delighted stableboy and bowed when Renly swung from his saddle to kneel. "Your Grace," Renly boomed, voice pitched to carry. "Your city outshines even the Summer Isles today." Tommen stammered thanks. Margaery squeezed his hand. Tywin observed from 3 paces back, the lion studying a young stag's prance, wary yet intrigued. Thorny politics budded in that moment. If Renly bent the knee to Tommen publicly, his claim died, but he would gain favor, perhaps offices, perhaps marriages. If he merely played courtier, the realm would keep guessing. Tyrion leaned forward, searching Renly's green eyes for calculation. After exchanging courtesies, Renly donned his helm and took the lists. Opposite him rode Ser Loras, turned from knight to challenger for the crowd's delight. The tilt that followed would be sung about for years. Shining stag against gallant rose, brother by law against brother of heart. Lances splintered thrice. On the 4th pass Renly's tempered oak struck Loras square, hurling him across the barrier. Gasps, cheers, cymbals hammered. Renly vaulted down to kneel beside his fallen friend, lifted the visor, and kissed Loras' cheek. Loras laughed, blood bright on his lip, and the crowd's roar swelled into riotous adoration. Never had they seen such sportsmanship. Tyrion caught Varys smiling thinly behind folded hands. "The small folk love a tale of brotherly affection," the eunuch murmured. "Renly writes myths with each pass." "And when myths march," Tyrion replied, "real men die." The tourney closed with handing out purses. Renly presented his victory's ruby-studded belt to Tommen, kneeling once more. Then, before the assembled lords, he spoke words rehearsed in secret, pledging sword, ship, and heart to the true king, Tommen of the houses Baratheon and Lannister. Stormlords hammered fists armor in support, Tyrell banners dipped. Dornish envoy watched, inscrutable. Tywin's rigid shoulders eased by a hair's breadth. Across the stands, Mace Tyrell puffed pride, and Olenna whispered barbs about how Renly looked quite handsome bowing to a child. Yet that night, in the cool hush of the Tower of the Hand, Varys told Tyrion what the crowd had not seen. A parchment passed from Renly's gauntlet to Littlefinger's sly palm. Within, the spider's birds swore, lay Renly's terms: a small council seat, Storm's End kept in perpetuity, and certain indulgences unspoken that involved keep-fast rites for a household knight named Sir Loras. Petyr Baelish had accepted the message with a smile sharp as a razor, promising safe delivery to those who mattered. Tyrion felt his stomach sink. Where Littlefinger walked, turmoil sprouted like mushrooms after rain. Still, he told himself, knots were tying. Renly's public fealty meant fewer swords for Stannis. The Reach delighted in spectacle, and the city slept easier that night than it had in moons. Let Littlefinger shuffle cards in shadows. Tyrion would watch the deck. A.K. In the north, the treaty ravens brought first disbelief, then uproar, then grudging contemplation. Robb Stark lingered long over every clause, riding the walls of River Run at dusk, with grey wind pacing silent as smoke beside him. Catelyn prayed in the Sept for guidance. The Blackfish argued that peace bought on Lannister terms stank worse than carrion. Yet stories of Tommen's gentleness trickled north. Bards singing of a boy king who pardoned poachers, who built orphanages from melted tourney silver, who asked his Septon nightly whether ghosts could forgive children. Soft tales, but true enough to flavor the Northman's ale. When Lady Stark held council in the Great Hall, her son at last pronounced judgment. We will bend for now, so we may rise again later, unbroken and unbloodied. The North remembers, but the North must also heal. A message of fealty rode south on wind-swift wings. Tyrion sipped wine in the small council chamber the morning the Raven arrived. He kept his face a mask, but inside a drum thundered, one front closed. When he left the council, Tywin's heavy gauntlet fell on his shoulder. A cunning piece, but do not let your belly grow soft. Stannis yet looms. I sleep in mail, Tyrion answered. My dreams are knives. Tywin's lips twitched, the closest he ever came to a smile. Then keep dreaming. I will march at dawn for the Kingswood, block Stannis' path should he sail upriver. You remain hand until my return. Damn? Father, Tyrion said quietly. If Dragonstow's fleet tries the Blackwater, wildfire alone cannot save us. The chain. I have ordered the smiths to labor twice through night and day, Tywin interrupted. Sir Adam has scoured every scrap of iron from Fleabottom's gutters. Your pet notion will be ready. He eyed his son. Make certain it is enough. Tyrion bowed. I will. That notion, born of sleepless nights spent sketching on parchment, had become a monstrous thing of bar links thicker than a man's wrist. A river-long chain to be drawn across the Blackwater at need, trapping ships in a killing basin where wildfire seas waited. He prayed Davos Seaworth smugglers' senses would smell the trap, but smugglers' senses dulled when kings commanded glory. Okay. Even as royal smithies rang and warships crowded docks, whispers curled through brothels and back corridors. That Cersei Lannister had resumed moon tea, though no longer of childbearing years. That Littlefinger paid Selzwards twice what crown levies earned. That Queen Margaery had taken to visiting the poor on unescorted walks, gathering allegiance among smallfolk hearts. Tyrion juggled these rumors like hot coals, dropping whichever felt least immediate, nursing blisters from those he caught too late. One coal scorched deepest the night he found Sansa Stark weeping alone in the Godswood. Moonlight silvered the weirwood's pale face, as Sansa whispered prayers into its bloody mouth. She started when Tyrion approached, but he raised empty hands. My lady, forgive my trespass. Only your betrothal draws near, and I wish to ensure you were prepared. Her blue eyes, red-rimmed, fixed him with wary composure beyond her years. I prepare every day, Lord Hand. I prepare to be a good wife, a good queen. She swallowed. And I prepare to lie to myself, until I believe it. The words pierced Tyrion's heart, exactly where compassion ached most. That corner where he stored his own childhood of mockery. He knelt, dwarfs found kneeling easy, standing tall hard. I will not claim happiness sits at the end of this altar, my lady. I will claim you may yet carve some part of yourself intact. He glanced at the weirwood's carved face, wondering if old gods listened to lions. If Tommen ever causes you pain, come to me. I swear on every book I ever read, no harm will find you unshielded. Sansa's mouth quivered. She pressed a kiss to the wooden face, then rose, curtsied stiffly, and vanished among torchlit cloisters. Tyrion remained, knees soaking dew, and prayed the promises he made would survive whichever storm loomed next. A.K. Storms find ports, no matter the harbor walls. Stannis sailed at last upon a moonless night swept by chill winds. 50 war galleys, hulls black as a septa's vow, slipped from Dragonstone's lee and arrowed across the restless sea. Above them spread banners of the fiery heart of Arlor. Upon the sea below drifted fanatics' prayers floating like dying embers. Braavos commanded the first line of tar-coated hulks, believing in steel and cunning, not gods. Far astern followed Lord Celtigar, Sir Imry Florent, and a red woman whose eyes glowed like coals. Their sails caught a dawn breeze painted pink as raw meat. By midday, they had rounded Massey's Hook. Watchtowers on the cliff sounded horns, gulls scattered shrieking. Within King's Landing, bells clanged, drums thundered, men-at-arms swarmed like dislodged ants. Tyrion strode the battlements, shouting orders, archers to the mud gate, scorpions on every tower, alchemists on standby behind the king's gate, with barrels of wildfire swaddled in damp cloth. Rain hammered the city by afternoon, as though the storm god wanted his share of this battle. At riverbank forges, the chain's final link cooled in hissing brine. Smiths heaved, curses poured, sparks leapt. When Tyrion arrived dripping on the quay, they fastened the last shackle and signaled tower winches to haul. Inch by inch the iron serpent slithered from water, loops rising mid-current before sinking again. Water churned, eddies foamed green. Soldiers cheered, a ragged, frightened sound. Then drums changed, louder, faster. A scout, on a swaying mast, gestured wildly. Sails approaching. Tyrion hauled himself up a ladder to gaze downriver. Shapes emerged from the rain curtain. Gray spears of masts, slashes of crimson deck banners. The Blackwater's mouth vomited enemies. His heart drummed in time with their oar strokes. The battle that followed blurred into shards. The high whine of scorpion bolts. The roar as wildfire casks burst among Stannis' leading craft, turning night into emerald noon. Davos' black-hulled fury crashing through flame to ram a royal cog. Catapult stones splitting masts like matchsticks. Tyrion saw men leap burning into churning green water, only to ignite anew when they bobbed among sticky wildfire patches. Screaming until molten river filled their lungs. Amid the chaos, Sir Imry's flagship spotted the chain's slack loops, and misjudging, surged forward, thinking to beach beneath the city walls before the boom could be drawn. Its keel thudded on unseen obstacles, Tyrion's hidden stakes, stalled, spun broadside, blocking half the fleet's push. Tyrion gave the signal. Winches groaned. The chain rose. Stone towers heaved, cables snapped taut, and suddenly Stannis' fleet found itself inside a giant butcher's yard, entrance sealed. Tyrion almost wept from exhaustion mixing with horrid awe. Flame blossomed across hulls as catapults hurled more casks. The air tasted of copper and aloe gone rancid. Yet the assault did not crumble. From the charnel ships, longboats splashed down. Men in oiled leathers rode frenzied to the riverbank under cover of smoke. And above them, Stannis himself paced the deck of a flaming galley. Sword raised, face black with soot, save for eyes shining like coins. "They will reach the walls," Tyrion shouted to Sir Jacelyn Bywater. "Men every tower stare with spears. Break from interior if you must." He turned to a page. "Tell his grace to stay below. The hand will command." Then the boy sprinted. A wash of heat pummeled Tyrion. He lurched sideways as a wildfire flask burst against a parapet 20 feet away. Masonry showered his back. He tasted blood, wiped, found only ash. The battle hammered on. Near dusk, a horn blew 3 times from the northeastern ramparts. Tyrion's heart nearly stopped. That signal meant enemy within the walls. He swore and pelted across swaying planks toward the Queen's Gate, Bronn and a dozen mountain clansmen on his heels. Rain still hammered, sluicing blood along stone gutters in thin wine-colored rivers. At the gate he found a breach, Iron-shod ram had splintered a sally door before defenders could brace it. 20 men in storm-black cloaks fought within, hacking through gold cloak lines. At their fore surged a huge knight bearing Stannis' fiery heart. Ser George Morrigan, famed in Turnian field. His long axe glimmered green with dripping wildfire. He swung it in arcs that split helmets like gourds. Tyrion had no time to fetch trained champions. He drew his own short sword, shoved a clansman forward, and charged. Bronn slipped left, flanking. Shagga roared, swinging a two-handed spiked mace that connected with Morrigan's shoulder. Plate dented. Morrigan grunted, staggered, whirled. Bronn darted in, blade flickering. Tyrion slashed for the hamstring. Steel glanced on Queese. Sparks flew. Morrigan howled, brought his axe down. Shagga blocked with the mace haft and dropped to a knee, arms trembling. Bronn stabbed under the rim of Morrigan's gorget. Missed. Tyrion feinted high, then plunged his sword into Morrigan's hip joint where plate met mail. He felt metal give, bone grind. The knight's scream cut rain. Shagga rose, hammering the mace into Morrigan's helm with a sound like a smith striking anvils. The knight toppled, axe skittering. Clansmen cheered. Gold cloaks rallied, driving the invaders back through the shattered door. Tyrion leaned against a wall, chest aflame, sword slick. Bronn clapped his shoulder. You'll be writing songs of yourself soon. I'd rather write treaties, Tyrion panted. He wiped blade on Morrigan's cloak. From the city's heart came muffled thunder. Another ship exploding perhaps, or the god's own drums. He pushed off the wall. Back to the river. Stannis is not beaten yet. They fought until green fire merged with dusk and both became nightmare. When finally war horns brayed retreat, the Blackwater lay choked with corpses and charred timbers. The chain still stretched across, sagging in places beneath the weight of dead ships hanging like macabre ornaments. Beyond, what remained of Stannis' fleet scattered seaward, oars dipping silent, sails hanging limp. Tyrion collapsed atop a parapet stone slick with rain and soot. Lightning forked beyond the clouds, illuminating the ruin he had wrought. Smoke scrawled black script against the sky, each curl spelling a name he would never know. Sailors, soldiers, boys from Storm's End whose mothers believed them safe. He had saved a city and damned thousands. Victory tasted like copper vomit in his mouth. Ka. The city awoke to bells of triumph. Women hurled roses from balconies. Bakers handed out trenches of bread stamped with lions wearing golden crowns. Children splashed in puddles, still tinted faintly green. Tommen rode a white pony through the Red Keep courtyard, flanked by Renly and Loras, scattering silver coins to cheering smallfolk. Yet inside Maegor's holdfast, Tyrion found himself summoned to his father's solar. Tywin stood like a statue carved of ironwood, gauntlets resting on the map table where bright enamel pins showed Stannis' route of retreat. Behind him hovered Maester Franken with stitched mouth of caution. Stannis burns, Tywin said without turning. His lords flee. A lesser enemy remains. Hunger. Grain stores run low. Riots will follow if we cannot feed this victory's survivors. Nems. Tyrion, still bandaged at thigh and temple, swallowed. I anticipated that. He tossed a ledger onto the table. Records of contracts he'd sent 2 moons past to Myrish grain merchants. 3 fleets already sail from Pentos carrying grain, paid with Lannister gold, not crown silver. Tywin skimmed, nodding. Well played. He closed the ledger. You bought the city time, and me, patience. He actually looked at his son then. Something softer than disdain flickering behind frost-green eyes. A rare day, when all Westeros owes its dawn to a half-man. Tyrion opened his mouth. GB or gratitude, he had not decided. But the compliment felt heavier than any insult Tywin ever cast. He found he could not speak. Rest, his father said brusquely. Soon we ride west. The Iron Islands raid our coast yet again. But for this moment King's Landing is secure, thanks to you. Tyrion bowed, not to hide tears, he told himself later, but to hide exhaustion. Yeah. D. That night, as candles guttered in the hand solar, Tyrion poured a final cup of wine. He addressed the empty room. I saved them all. They will never know. The words tasted like ash. Lantern light flickered over the lion carved on his cup. Its ruby eyes sparkled as though amused. Across the keep, bells rang the midnight watch. Soon letters would fly to Winterfell, to Highgarden, to Sunspear, announcing peace forged in green fire. But war's embers survived buried in ash, waiting for the careless footfall. Tyrion sank into a chair. He recalled Joffrey's last breath and wondered whether, had he stayed his hand, the realm would now lie beneath smoking ruin or bloom in some alternate spring. He would never know, any more than those sailors downstream would learn why their oarsmen's daughters would grow fatherless. But Tommen lived. Sansa was safe. The North bled no more. And he, Tyrion of House Lannister, for all his sins, had steered fate, if only by inches, toward a dawn where children might wake to laughter instead of lament. He lifted the cup in toast to ghosts no one else would drink for. To Joffrey, to Morrigan, to nameless boys aflame. Then he drank alone until the candle died, and the dawn he had fought for bled, pale through lattice work, promising trials unimagined. And somewhere, beyond narrow seas and broken oaths, dragons stirred in their slumber, feeling the tremor of a realm reshaped by a dwarf's clandestine mercy. Dragons who knew that peace, like chains, eventually breaks. Autumn's waning light bled across the sky like the last ember of a banked fire, and King's Landing surrendered to darkness with slow, sighing reluctance. Tyrion Lannister stood upon the ramparts of Maegor's Holdfast, staring east where muddy rooftops vanished into charcoal haze. Even with the Blackwater's corpse-flecked waters hidden beneath night fog, the stench of burnt pitch and rotten flesh clung to the stones. Wind teased his lion-head cloak, and carried a distant murmur of the city. Vendors packing wilted cabbages, whores hawking cheap tenderness, smiths quenching flaming iron. Life endured, oblivious or willfully forgetful of how near they had come to the sword. A flick of torchlight below drew his attention. Bronn emerged from an arched postern, armor varnished in soot, whistling some bawdy tune. He sighted Tyrion, offered a half salute, and climbed the stair until he leaned on the merlin beside him. City's quiet, the sellsword said. Too quiet, if you ask me. Folk are drunk on victory, but hangovers come dear. Tyrion grunted agreement. Victory is a cup that empties faster than it fills. He rubbed the aching bridge of his nose. Any word from the dungeons? Sir Jacelin's galers counted 40 Stormlanders, still breathing after the healers had their pick. Bronn shrugged. Bunch are lesser lords' sons. Ransoms will make nice purses, if the fathers still draw breath. See to it, Tyrion murmured, noting how war turned men into ledgers of opportunity. Gold spent on widows and orphans buys more loyalty than gold piled under Casterly Rock. Or stacked in my saddlebags, Bronn said with a grin. A moment later, his tone shifted. That red priestess, Melisandre, not among the prisoners, nor a corpse. Sailors swear she walked unscathed through green flames, then vanished on the tide. Menetrau. Tyrion shivered despite himself, recalling rumors of shadowspawn born from her womb, of king's blood burnt to wake stone dragons. Let her vanish, he muttered, though foreboding coiled in his belly. If she resurfaces, the realm will have bigger troubles than missing purses. Bronn spat over the wall. All sorcerers can drown for all I care. Steel cuts wonders once you find where to stick it. Then pray you never face steel that melts before it touches flesh, Tyrion said, recalling wildfire seas. He tightened his cloak. Any other ill tidings? The Iron Bank's envoy reached the harbor at dusk, Bronn answered. Calls himself Tycho Nestoris. Wants audience with the Hand at sunrise. Tyrion groaned. Iron bankers descend quicker than vultures. They smell opportunity and overdue interest. He exhaled mist into the chill air. Wake me before dawn. I'll need wits sharpened. Thought you always kept 'em honed. Even razors dull faster than tongues. Tyrion forced a tired smile. Go find a cup, Sir Bronn of the Blackwater. You earned it. He lingered alone until the torch's guttering brand hissed out and left the rampart to moonless dark. In his chambers, Shay awaited amidst rumpled quilts. She brushed raven hair behind her ear and pouted at the mud on his boots. You smell like a dyer's vat. A dyer's vat could learn new scents from my boots, Tyrion quipped, kicking them free. He eased onto the bed with a sigh that emptied a week of battle from his lungs. Come, warm me before my bones remember they are broken. She pressed herself against him, small hands splaying over bandaged ribs. You push yourself too hard. Even a lion needs rest. Lions sleep when the savannah is safe. Ours teems with hyenas. He cupped her cheek. I must meet bankers come dawn, sue the queen come noon, and outwit a spider before dusk. Shay traced the scar running from his brow to his jaw. Then sleep now. She extinguished the lamp, and darkness folded around them. His last waking thought was of Melisandre's impossible silhouette against emerald fire, an omen he could not name. Morning cracked pale and cold. Tyrion dressed in doublet of black brocade laced with golden thread. Somber enough for diplomacy, rich enough for Braavos. Podrick straightened the hand's chain around his neck. When Tyrion entered the solar adjoining the council chamber, Tycho Nestoris waited, spindle thin, beard forked in two precise braids. Behind him stood two Braavosi guards, whose silvered breastplates bore a faceless titan. My lord Hand, Nestoris intoned, bowing just low enough to preserve superiority. Braavos extends congratulations on your city's improbable survival. Improbable victories are my specialty. Tyrion motioned to a chair. Wine was poured, arbor white, not too costly. The Iron Bank respected restraint more than ostentation. I trust your voyage was smooth? Clement, Nestoris said, sipping. But the bank's ledgers grow stormy. His late Majesty Joffrey borrowed heavily for crossbows and silk banners. His Grace Tommen inherits not only a crown, but a debt of 6 million gold honors. Tyrion masked a wince. The crown recognizes its obligations. However, the war upended revenue. Grain silos burn, trade routes founder. The Iron Bank is not unsympathetic, Nestoris cut in. Yet gold owed must return with gold grown. Perhaps an arrangement. Exclusive tariffs for Braavosi shipping, mining rights in Golden Grove, or shares in your foundries forging that remarkable river chain. Tyrion considered. Braavosi partnership could refill coffers, at a price. Let us draft options, he said. In return, the crown requests immediate credit line of 1 million honors to feed the poor through winter. Empty bellies breed rebellion. Nestoris' gray eyes gleamed. A wise investment. Rebellion disrupts repayment schedules. He produced a narrow ledger, quill already inked. By the time sun slanted westward, they had outlined provisional accords exchanging port tariffs for grain loans, and future interest pegged to a fraction above the Winterfell rate, whatever that meant. Tyrion knew only that signatures kept blades sheathed. For now. After the Braavosi departed, Varys glided in, smelling of rose water and candle wax. Such elegant negotiations, he remarked, though a lion's tail now entwines Braavos' talons. Better talons than teeth, Tyrion muttered, rubbing temples. What tidings from your songbirds? A choir of disquiet. Varys took the seat Nestoris had vacated. Within the city, whispers claim the wildfire carnage was sorcery, not alchemy. Some blame the foreign red woman. Others blame you. Let them. Fearful men seldom pick up swords. Tyrion poured himself a heavier draught. There is more. Cersei has resumed evening audiences with Lord Baelish, behind sealed doors. Their attendants report laughter. Soft, conniving laughter. Then? That is the worst kind. Tyrion frowned. Littlefinger dances only for profit. If he courts my sister, he smells blood. Perhaps yours. Tyrion drummed fingers on oaken grain. Watch them. If Baelish stirs coin toward disaffected gold cloaks, I need names. Already gathered. Varys produced a list. Tyrion scanned sigils. Caltrops, Thumb, Red Ronnet Connington, Stormlander noble turned mercenary, some sell-sail captains with lean purses. A spark of anger flared. While we rebuild charred docks, Littlefinger buys the men who guard them. He exhaled. I cannot arrest him on rumor. Father would call it petty. But we can spoil his feast. I have ideas, Varys said with a smile as bland as porridge. That evening, the royal family dined in the Queen's ballroom, rebuilt, gilded anew, tapestries covering scorch marks where Joffrey fell. Tommen presided atop a smaller throne, feet dangling. Margaery sat left, Cersei right. Tywin loomed beside a candelabrum, armor polished, though no battle threatened. Tyrion joined late, citing banking matters. Servants poured hippocras spiced with cloves. Musicians plucked gentle chords. Conversation turned to harvest yields. Lord Mace Tyrell boasted of high garden granaries near to bursting. We'll send wagons east, he declared, patting his belly, and bread shall rise in every hearth. Cersei's smile was precise as a scalpel. How generous. Yet grain wagons require escort through crownlands crawling with bandits. She sipped wine. Surely House Tyrell volunteers knights to protect such bounty. Lord Mace puffed. Naturally, your grace. My sword lilies will guard every bushel. Nanday. Margaery brushed Tommen's sleeve. We shall feed the capital together, won't we, my king? Tommen nodded shyly, looking to his mother for approval, his grandfather for guidance, and finding neither given. Tyrion intervened. A joint proclamation tomorrow. The Queen Regent, the King, and the future Queen commanding prices frozen for bread until spring. Small folk will cheer. Tywin murmured assent. Cersei's gaze slid to Tyrion. Daggers, but restrained. Margaery's eyes sparkled, recognizing a victory. When singers arrived, Tyrion excused himself. As he crossed the echoing hall, a pale hand brushed his. He turned. Sansa Stark stood dutifully near a column, hair woven with winter roses. She whispered, "Thank you for speaking kindly to his grace. He is gentle." Tyrion inclined his head. The city grows gentler by his example. He meant it, and saw a flicker of gratitude soften her timid smile. Outside, cold stars glittered like fresh coins. Tyrion pulled cloak tighter, uneasy under their judgment. Hells, he thought. Let them be coins enough to pay the debts yet to come. Weeks slid by, each dawn bearing new nettles. Robb Stark's envoys requested confirmation of Ned's Bones' arrival at Winterfell, a procession Tyrion had dispatched with due pomp. Stony Shore raiders struck Lannisport, burning 3 galleys. Tywin swore a crushing answer and rode west with half the city watch. In his absence, Cersei reasserted authority, instructing kitchens to serve costlier delicacies, ordering masons to carve marble lions along the Street of Sisters, and quietly expanding the Red Keep's private guard. Men swore not to the king, but to her. One bright afternoon, Tyrion confronted her in the Queen's drawing room, where sunlight dappled silks of Dornish carpets. She lounged with a cup of raspberry wine, a tome of Valyrian history abandoned on her lap. "Your guards multiply," he began without preamble. "The treasury staggers under plague pits and grain subsidies, yet you equip new men in half-plate." Cersei closed the book softly. "Brothels make enough coin for such trifles." "You should know, brother, you tax them." He ignored the jibe. "Red cloaks answer to the crown. Private forces answer to ambition. They. So speaks the dwarf with sellsword shadows." She rose. "These men protect Tommen. City Watch deserted Joffrey when trouble came. I shan't rely on cowards." Tyrion bit back retort. She was not entirely wrong. "Very well, their loyalty is to Tommen. Then have him sign their commissions publicly." Her eyes narrowed. "You fear I arm against you." "I fear division," he said simply. "If wildfire taught anything, it is that sparks find dry kindling ever willing." He bowed. "I will draft the commissions myself. For the king's signature." "Da." She studied him, searching for traps. Finding none, she nodded curtly. "Do so." But as he departed, he felt her stare trace his steps, measuring when best to plunge a knife. With winter's edge whispering from the north, a raven arrived at dawn bearing 2 scrolls. The first, sealed with direwolf, stated, "Eddard Stark's bones interred in family crypt. Winterfell pledges friendship under just king." Robb's signature rode beneath, bold strokes. The second scroll bore the wax sigil of Balon Greyjoy, a short declaration of independence, striking a kraken across every line. "The Iron Islands shall pay no gold nor bend the knee. Salt and rock answer only salt and rock." Tyrion expected as much. Balon would never accept peace that bound him to mainland kings. He summoned the small council. Pycelle wheezed complaints about sea raiders burning arbor trade. Baelish countered with promises of new alliances if the crown endorsed iron-born salt wives for reach merchants, a ridiculous proposal but typical distraction. Cersei pressed that Tommen's fleet, what remained, sail west at once. Tyrion knew better. The navy needed months of repair. The soldiers needed land wars they could win. Thus he struck a bargain with Sir Davos Seaworth, recently captured, whose honor shone through chains. Tyrion visited him in the bowels of the Red Keep, where damp lichen glowed faintly and memories of dungeons past chilled his marrow. Davos rose when Tyrion entered. "Lord Hand," he rasped, voice raw from silent nights. "You saved men from wildfire," Tyrion said. "Rode them through flame. That speaks bravery." "Benderau." "I serve my king," Davos replied, though his shoulders sagged at mention of Stannis' defeat. "I need brave men on Saltwater. Sail under my banner, fight the Kraken, and earn freedom for yourself and your sons." Tyrion held out parchment. "You will command 20 repaired galleys, their crews chosen among Stormlanders who bent the knee. Smash Balon's raiders, reopen Lannisport, and I will speak clemency for Stannis loyalists." Davos' weather-creased face folded in thought. "Stannis yet lives." "He does," Tyrion conceded, "but his cause withers. Serve the realm he once sought to rule. Perhaps win him mercy." He waited. At last Davos took the parchment. "I am a smuggler, Lord Hand. I know treacherous tides. The Kraken's reach is strong." "Stronger when unchecked," Tyrion said. "Cut its arms." Davos dipped quill. On the iron-barred desk he signed his name. New chapter of allegiance. Nights lengthened. Varys birds chirped of unrest far to the east, of Daenerys Targaryen and Korth gathering soldiers beneath dragon wings, of Astapor slavers whispering offers of unsullied armies. Tyrion scrawled notes, calculations. Dragons changed every equation. Castles built over centuries could melt in afternoon heat, should the Silver Queen cross the narrow sea. He confided his dread to Tywin upon the Lord's return from the west, where ironborn raids had been quelled by golden steel. Tywin frowned little at talk of dragons. "The last dragon turned to dust near a century past," he scoffed. "These breathe fire enough to char warships," Tyrion insisted. "Rumors claim they've grown to warhound size." "Rumors." Tywin poured wine. "When dragons land on Westerosi soil, we devise measures. Until then, we quell present foes." Then. But Tyrion felt shadows stretching across the sea, blacker than wildfire smoke. On the first snow of midwinter, Littlefinger made his long-anticipated play. It began subtly. A dockside riot over bread prices ballooned into 3 taverns torched, 2 gold cloaks slain. Bailiffs arrived too late, claiming half their men drunk or missing. Tyrion smelled sabotage. He dispatched Bronn to trace coin. Within a fortnight, they uncovered chests of silver stashed in a disused wine cellar beneath Baelish's manse, enough to pay 500 sellswords for a month. Confrontation came during a feast honoring Davos' first victory against the Ironborn. The great hall rang with applause as minstrels praised Seaworth's daring raid on Fair Isle. Davos stood humbled, a new lordship promised. Amid the revelry, Tyrion approached Baelish, who spun cups of hippocras with pirates from Volantis. "Lord Pedder," Tyrion said lightly, "the wine flows richer than rumor. Might we speak in private?" Baelish measured him with sly, mirish blue eyes. "But rumor keeps this city's heart beating, Lord Hand. Too fast a heartbeat leads to apoplexy. Indulge me." He led Littlefinger to an alcove behind a crimson drape. There, Bronn waited with two silent clansmen gripping spears. Baelish arched a brow. Intimidation? I thought you above crude displays. I prefer precision. Tyrion produced a ledger. Coin of identical mint to this token. He flipped a silver stag stamped with Joffrey's sneering face. Found in barrels beneath your home, earmarked for sellswords who failed to appear. Embezzling royal funds in wartime is treason. Baelish smiled, unperturbed. An accounting error, surely. Funds set aside for harbor reconstruction. Enough to purchase a small kingdom. Tyrion interrupted. Confess, and I exile you to Gulltown, with coin repaid thrice over. Refuse. He glanced at the clansman, and the headsman steps from song into history. Baelish's smile thinned. For a heartbeat, the mask slipped, showing icy calculation. Then he bowed. Exile to Gulltown, provided titles remain, and I keep my fingers. Fingers, yes. Influence, no. Tyrion extended a parchment. Swear by 7 gods, you will meddle no more in city affairs. A ship sails at dawn. And now? Baelish signed, the quill scratching like a dying mouse. Tyrion felt no triumph, only relief. The mockingbird exiled still possessed wings, but at least they stretched far from King's Landing. Winter's depths settled in crystals along window edges. Tommen turned 10, celebrated with masked ball where children whirled under colored lanterns. For one night, the Red Keep echoed with laughter, unmarred by fear. Tyrion watched from a balcony, nursing mulled wine. Margaery guided Tommen through a simple reel. Her rose perfume drifted upward. Sansa twirled with Podrick, much to her own startled delight. Even Cersei smiled faintly at the spectacle. As moonlight silvered the hall, Varys arrived, cloak dusted with snowflakes. A white raven has flown from the citadel, he whispered. They have declared the end of autumn. Winter is come. Tyrion looked upon the little king's fragile joy and felt the weight of the words like a millstone. Then we must keep the hearth blazing, he said. The eunuch inclined head. But pay heed, my lord. Across the sea, 3-headed storms gather. Qarth has gifted Daenerys a fleet of 20 escorts. Meereen grows restless in bondage. She marches toward Slaver's Bay, where slaves whisper songs of fire and freedom. Then now, Tyrion exhaled frost. Dragons love slaves. They smell liberation and smoke. He drained the cup. Prepare ravens to Old Town's archmaesters. Ask what kills a dragon besides time. Varys' eyes shone with sorrow. Time kills all men too, yet we still fight wars. Tyrion gave a hollow laugh. Because men kill faster. He gripped the balcony rail, knuckles white. Below, Tommen spun, cloak flaring like a banner of dawn. Spring's first crocus thrust through courtyard frost, when word reached the capital that Robb Stark had been slain, not in battle, but at a wedding feast in the Twins. Roose Bolton's dagger, the Frey's crossbows, Walder's treachery. The young wolf's throat opened over roast capon and drowning music, his banners cut down while cups still clinked. Catelyn Stark thrown into the green fork, gray cloak bleeding red. The Lannisters send their regards. Tyrion received the raven at midday council. He read aloud, voice steady, though bile clawed his throat. Tywin's gaze never left him. Cersei's smile blossomed, a cruel flower drinking grief. In that moment, Tyrion grasped the full gravity of the game his father played. While he brokered fragile peace, Tywin struck north, buying daggers with gold and promising lordships for dead kings. After council, Tyrion confronted him in the Tower Library, oak ladders casting long bars across musty tomes. "Did you order the Freys to slaughter guests beneath your protection?" he demanded. Tywin closed a scroll with calm precision. "I ordered the war ended. The Freys chose means fitting their insult. Bolton ensured victory. Then thousands butchered during sacred bread and salt. The realm will curse our name. The realm will feast this winter instead of starving." Tywin fixed his son with marble gaze. "You think wars end on honor? Honor is a horse, lame yet proud. I ride victory." Tyrion's hands trembled on a shelf. He tasted copper of wildfire, saw Joffrey's corpse again, and wondered whether cleansing evil ever outweighed perpetuating it. "At what cost?" he whispered. "Cost measured against extinction," Tywin said. "Stark dead, north broken, ironborn leashed. Our dominion stands." He turned away. "And when dragons come, the realm will rally behind the house that fed its children and kept them safe." Tyrion left, stomach churning. That night, he walked the godswood, bare trees rattling like bones, and poured wine onto weirwood roots. "Forgive what I cannot," he murmured. News of the Red Wedding spiraled chaos. In Winterfell's ashes, Bolton claimed wardenship of the North. White Harbor's merman seals considered rebellion, but found no king to crown. The small folk in King's Landing cheered the war's end, ignorant of oaths broken. Sansa Stark vanished, spirited from the capital the very eve of the dread news, leaving a trail of guards doped with poppy seed. Cersei accused Tyrion. Tyrion suspected Baelish's long arm from Gulltown. Regardless, Sansa was gone, her value as hostage severed. Into this maelstrom, Joffrey's name day approached. Though dead, his boredom still cost coin. A statue unveiled in the grand square, golden and towering thrice his height. Cersei demanded it. Tyrion balked at extravagance amidst famine pockets, but Tywin overruled. Even dead lions must roar. The unveiling drew crowds thick as a harvest fair. Golden drapery fell, revealing Joffrey poised with crossbow, sneer immortal in gilded sneer. Murmurs rippled. Some awe, some discomfort. Tyrion glimpsed an old washerwoman spit at the statue's feet before soldiers dragged her off. That evening, as purple dusk bled behind the sept of Baelor, Tyrion dined with Shay in modest Solar, serving boiled eggs and turnip stew. She asked why gloom shadowed his face. He told her of chains heavier than iron, of choices trading one horror for another. She listened, brushed his hair, and said he was kinder than he knew. Later, lying awake, he wondered if kindness ever thrived in soil, fertilized by betrayal. He had killed his nephew to save a kingdom. His father had slaughtered a kingdom to save legacy. Was either savior or both damned? Summer thunderheads rolled in from the south, bruised violet, bearing storms that split the sky above Blackwater Bay. On one such night, Tyrion climbed to the Tower of the Hand's apex. Alone, lightning forked beyond Dragonstone's outline. For a heartbeat, he fancied he saw wings beating in that flash, great silhouettes circling distant clouds, harbingers drawn to Westeros blood. He raised a goblet towards them. "Come then," he muttered. "Come taste the ashes we made of honor." Behind him, footsteps. He turned to see Tommen, small in oversized cloak, eyes wide. "Uncle, you speak to the sky." Tyrion knelt, pulling the boy close. "Sometimes the sky answers when no one else will." He ruffled Tommen's hair. "What brings you here so late?" "I dreamt of claws tearing the walls. I wanted to see if the city still stood." "When it stands." Tyrion guided him to the parapet. Torches glimmered across rooftops. "Look, 1,000 fires of home." Tommen leaned over. "Will dragons come, uncle?" "Perhaps." Tyrion weighed truth. "If they do, we'll meet them together, with courage, cunning, and chains wrought cunning as any iron." Tommen nodded solemnly. "Mother says dragons are evil." "Some," Tyrion said. "Some merely follow their nature." He thought of Cersei's fury, of Tywin's cold calculus. Men can be worse. Lightning cracked. Tommen flinched. Tyrion placed the carved wooden lion in the boy's palm. "Remember the stories, strength and mercy. Roar soft when you can, loud when you must." Tommen squeezed the toy. "Will you always guide me?" "While breath remains," Tyrion vowed, tasting the vow's impossible weight. He hugged Tommen, small heartbeat fluttering like caged bird. As rain hammered the ramparts, Tyrion lifted his gaze to the trembling heavens, and in that seething infinity imagined paths of fire drifting west. He felt the realm poised upon a knife, balance wound taut by axe he could never undo. Yet hope, stubborn as grass through stone, stirred whenever the boy smiled. If dragons came, perhaps they would find not a feast of fear, but a kingdom half-healed, governed by a hand with scars enough to warn of folly. Or perhaps they would burn it all, and from the ashes sprout flowers no lion's paw could crush. Either end, Tyrion thought, would at least be honest. He drew his cloak about Tommen and led him below, each step ringing on wet stone as thunder drowned the whispering city. Behind them the sky split once more, bright as noon, revealing empty air where dragons might one day soar, carrying judgment for sins stained deeper than wildfire green. But tonight only rain fell, washing char and blood alike into the hungry gutters, toward the restless sea that waited to swallow every secret men dared believe buried. Tyrion welcomed the storm's cold sting on his face, a penance no septon could grant, and whispered to the darkness a prayer he doubted any god would heed, that someday his ledger of debts paid in lies and deaths might balance against the single fragile hope he sheltered in a child king's trembling heart. Snowfall the color of dead ash drifted over King's Landing. The morning Grand Maester, Pycelle, died in his sleep. No warning, no lingering illness, only the servant's discovery of the old man sprawled half off his pallet, mouth slack, eyes glazed toward some private horror no one would ever name. Tyrion, roused from the tower by a panting page, knelt beside the body and smelled bitter almonds on Pycelle's breath. He said nothing of it aloud. Bitter almonds were a scent remembered from his youth, when a Myrish tutor had once disposed of unwanted kittens with crushed seeds. He ordered the bedchamber sealed until the silent sisters arrived and dismissed the servants trembling in the corridor. When he emerged, dawn's first gray had spread thin over roofs like tarnished pewter. He walked the silent hallways alone, mind racing. Pycelle had been the last link to secrets of wildfire, poisons, and Tywin's closed-door bargains. Now that link lay severed by someone who knew which page of the ledger to tear out. Cersei would be first in every guessing mind, but she would not have risked the ritual blood of kin while Tommen still perched shakily upon the throne. No, this tasted of smaller claws. Perhaps Littlefingers reached from Gulltown, or Varys' quiet knife-work, though Tyrion judged Varys often killed only to stop others killing more. Whoever wielded the blade of silence had tipped the board again, and he had to learn if the move aimed at him or something larger. By midday, the Red Keep rang with bells for Pycelle's passing. Squires draped the great sept in black banners printed with white chains. It felt both too much and too little. Too grand for a man Tyrion had often despised, too hollow for the knowledge in that doomed head. He attended the service out of necessity rather than grief, flanked by Bronn wearing a scratchy purple cloak suitable for mourners' ranks. Cersei glided past with a veil of jet beads. Through its gauze her green eyes burned at him, as if still weighing what portion of blame she might pin to him today. Tyrion watched Tommen clasp his mother's gloved fingers, child's lips reciting prayers he surely did not yet understand, Margaery murmuring each line a breath ahead, so he would never stumble. The boy's voice quavered where the prayer called for the crone's wisdom, and Tyrion's own mouth tightened. Tommen needed living mentors, not dead. Pycelle's sudden vacancy would prompt a scramble among aged maesters from Old Town, eager to wear the chain, each more pliable to court factions than the last. Tyrion meant to block that scramble, or at least slow it. The new Grand Maester would answer to one king alone, or to one hand acting in that king's stead. Anything else would drown them in potions of treachery. After the sept service, Tyrion cornered Archmaster Franken, a lean fox-haired man who had recently replaced Pycelle in physic duties. Franken bowed stiffly, chain links of pewter and tin jangling. Tyrion drew him aside behind a marble pillar. His grace requires a healer of unchallenged loyalty and modern learning, Tyrion said, voice pitched so echoes would not betray him. I will send ravens to the citadel naming 3 candidates I trust. Until one arrives, you will attend the king in all matters, and answer only to me when medicines are prepared. No private remedies for the Queen Regent, no secret tonics from suspicious drawers. Mender Smye. Franken's knuckles whitened around the vellum notes he carried. But Lady Cersei is Queen Mother, not physician. Obey, and King's Landing will remember you as savior when winter fevers strike. Disobey, and you will wish you had choked on the same draught that stilled Pycelle. Sharp eyes flickered. He bowed again, lower this time. As my lord commands. Tyrion left him to the scents of incense and melting candle stumps, and went seeking answers more elusive than Franken's obedience. Varys awaited in the Tower of the Hand, seated cross-legged before the hearth, like a gargoyle carved from courtly silk. "Ah, my lord," the eunuch said as Tyrion closed the heavy door. "I feared the bell's lament might soften your humor." "Bells never soften anything. They crack skulls if rung long enough." Tyrion poured wine, gestured for Varys to sit. "Tell me about Pycelle's real murderer." Varys folded plump hands. "I might ask what murderer." The Grand Maester was quite aged. Age does not brew bitter almonds. A beat, then the spider inclined his bald head. Sharp nose, as ever. The old man had recently obtained a draught of essence of nightshade. My little bird's whisper he intended to nurse it to the Queen's bedchamber. To help her sleep, he said. Nemtan. Sleep eternal, Tyrion thought. Then someone replaced the vial. Or merely added a drop more. Varys accepted the proffered cup. Our grief will be felt most keenly by the dungeons. Not a gaoler alive trusted any other to certify a confession's authenticity. And what of Cersei? Distraught, yet not inconsolable. A sly lift of brow. She seeks quickly to install Maester Balabar, an ambitious healer already whispering of poultices to strengthen kings' hearts against winter chills, though some say his draughts wither hearts faster than age. Tyrion snorted. He won't taste the iron seat if I can help it. He sipped wine, letting its peppery tongue clear tension. What of Daenerys? Any sails yet from Korth? None sighted in the narrow sea, but Astapor's good masters are said to tremble. 3 dragons perched on a galley mast will make any slaver reassess investments. And now? Tyrion's thoughts roiled. If Daenerys captured the Unsullied, she would possess an army the size of King's Landing's own garrison, discipline unmatched, spears stainless. Dragons hatched by miracle of funeral flames, multiplied now to beasts rumored the size of mules. His father's scorn for rumor seemed less comforting each raven. He dismissed Varys with instructions. Double the lookout rotations along the stepstones. Bribe Pentoshi captains to send word at first sight of any 3-masted ships flying foreign banners. When the eunuch glided away, Tyrion allowed fatigue to wash over him. It felt like sinking into wet sand. One could rest, but rising again cost thrice the strength. Shay found him there, hours later. Flames glow painting fretwork shadows over the map table. She knelt behind, kneading tight cords of muscle between his shoulder blades. They say the maester died cursing the gods, she whispered. Is that bad luck? Only for him. Tyrion reached back, capturing her hand. Stay tonight. I'd rather dream of noise than silence. She lingered until candles burned low. When she slept, he rose, threw on a cloak, and slipped out. Some truths awaited only in the night's forgotten corners, and he had learned the city's hidden arteries intimately since wearing the hand's chain. He took a torch down damp stairwells to the old storerooms beneath the rookery, where spider webs shimmered like ghost lace. There, behind a stack of cracked amphorae, he found the secret shelf Pycelle once showed him, lined with phials of quick death poisons. Tywin had ordered brewed for soldiers, too ruined by fire to live. One phial missing, dust disturbed. Tyrion crouched, studying the faintest bootprint in grime. Small, narrow, not a man's heavy heel. A woman's slipper, or a eunuch's soft shoe. He tucked that question into the vault of future reckoning and replaced the amphorae carefully. Adamant not to carry the taint of suspicion up the stairs, he wiped ashes from his knees and went in search of the only other soul cunning enough to find a keyhole in shadows. Qyburn, the disgraced former Maester Tywin, kept in a forgotten wing of the Maester's kennels. Qyburn greeted him in a dank chamber lit by whale oil lamps, mice skittering across slate benches. Thin-lipped smile, eyes bright with perpetual curiosity. Lord Hand honors me. You and Death enjoy each other's company, Tyrion said curtly. I need you to inspect a corpse. Determine exactly what stilled that heart. Discreetly. Maine. Ah, Grand Maester Pycelle. Qyburn licked teeth. I heard rumor. Rumor is useless. I require fact. Your reward will be licensed to practice physic within the court, under my oversight. Abuse the privilege, and you'll wish you shared Pycelle's fate. Qyburn bowed deep. I shall report by moon's next rise. Tyrion left wondering if he'd just invited a basilisk to guard the hatchlings. But basilisk scales cut both ways. If Qyburn betrayed him, the surgeon likely would not live to draft a second betrayal. The moon rode high when he returned to his chambers, where Shay still slept. He sat upon the edge of the bed, watching her breathe, wondering when the last fragile tether holding his life would snap. If Daenerys sailed west, if Cersei found proof of Joffrey's poisoning, if Tywin learned the full bargain with Davos, or the uncounted coin funneled to Storm's End defenses, so many ifs, each a sharpened quill poised over his ledger of sins. But the world persisted at dawn despite ifs, and so must he. 3 days later, Qyburn appeared, bearing a thin wooden box. He unlatched it before Tyrion, and revealed a sliver of crystal, smeared with pale residue. Tears of Lys, he said. Administered in wolfress wine. The dosage lethal to a man of half Pycelle's age. His expression shone with avid pride, as though unraveling a puzzle pleased him more than fear of retribution. Mixed with an ice to mask the bitterness. Clever touch. Which chalice? Tyrion asked. None. Die. Residue found in the mouth. He drank directly from the phial, believing it poppy-soaked tonic. Now. Meaning the killer needed only to swap vials, not endure risk of servants witnessing cup tampering. Tyrion dismissed Qyburn with promised coin, and sat chewing his lip. Tears of Lys cost fortunes. Few could procure it under wartime scrutiny. Littlefinger. He had always favored Lyseni courtesans and their poison-smuggling ways. But the man was 500 leagues east, prowling Vale courts. Varys could source it, yet to what end? Killing Pycelle granted the spider minimal gain, unless, as Pycelle died, another maester more beholden to Varys approached the throne. Cersei, though flush with Lannister gold, disdained foreign toxins. She preferred crossbows and intimidation. Still, the Lyseni tears left no stain upon the knife. Perhaps that anonymity tempted her. He ordered guards to double outside the potion stores and delivered sealed writs to Franken forbidding any unregistered fluids. He even posted Bronn at the corridor's bend. Our maester's store of sleepy seeds is now the realm's greatest treasure, he explained, and treasure invites thieves. Bronn grinned. If anyone grabs a vial, what then? Ask politely for the label, Tyrion said. Then bury them if they answer wrong. Winter blanketed the countryside faster than ravens could tally it. Roads iced. Small folk died in drifts outside city gates. Tyrion's grain reserve purchases proved salvation. Breadlines stretched but did not starve. Yet other shadows lengthened. White Harbor's Lord Manderly sent word of an army of the dead sighted near the last river. A mad rumor, easily dismissed until 2 more ravens carried matching tales of corpses, walking in snow-choked valleys, eyes bright as frozen stars. Tyrion nearly laughed at first, then remembered the hush that fell in Winterfell's great hall years before, when old Nan had told Bran Stark how dead men rode again during the long night. He sent for Samwell Tarly, the Night's Watch recruit, rumored to have felled an other north of the wall with dragonglass. But Tarly was snowbound at Castle Black, ravens reported, and Stannis survivors still harried the watch for shelter. Another coil in the tangle. Amid these crises, the wedding date of Tommen Baratheon and Margaery Tyrell edged closer. Cersei contested every detail. The cloak's shade, the meal seating, the High Septon's choice of verse. Tyrell lords countered with honeyed suggestions that gave the Queen Mother no room to refuse without seeming churlish. Tyrion mediated, though his patience thinned like frost in midday sun. Margaery herself remained grace-embodied, flower-soft outside, steely within. She began weekly visits to Flea Bottom's orphanages, each trip accompanied by Tommen, each documented in song by minstrel accidentally invited. Public favor swelled around her, even gold cloaks doffed helms when she passed. Cersei's scowl deepened to permanent carven mask. 7 nights before the royal wedding, Tyrion found himself summoned to the Queen Regent's solar. Cersei awaited beside a brazier, flames licking gold into her hair. She gestured him to a seat. "I will speak plainly," she said, voice iron. "You have kept secrets. I no longer care which, but you must hear mine." She poured herself wine. It sloshed heavy. "Father intends to name you regent, should anything befall Tommen. He told me nothing. He told me." She met his gaze. "He has grown impressed with your victories, your management of coin. He admires what he thinks is loyalty." Tyrion considered. "It could be truth, or bait. And this troubles you." "It enrages me." Cersei's hand trembled on the cup. "You killed my firstborn. You sip father's favor like sweet milk, and think me blind. Bendawanende. Your firstborn would have raised the capital without wildfire." Tyrion replied quietly. "Tywin sees that now." Her jaw clenched. "Time will come when the realm weighs your worth against mine. When that day arrives, I will not be found wanting." She stepped close, eyes glistening. "Choose. Stand with your blood or drown in it." Tyrion forced calm. "I stand with the realm, Cersei. Blood alone cannot quench dragonfire nor haunt the others back beyond the wall." "Poetic." She brushed past, gown swishing. "But dragons will burn regardless whom you toast with grand speeches. Better the Lannister roar from a monster than the whimper of a dwarfish savior." She dismissed him with a turn of her shoulder. Tyrion left, heartbeat thudding, and understood at last the shape of the cliff on which he balanced. Cersei no longer merely maneuvered, she prepared to strike. Wedding day dawned under a cerulean sky, scandalously bright for midwinter. The city, scrubbed and hung with myrtle garlands, pulsed with juniper incense. Crowds lined the route from Maegor's Holdfast to the great sept of Baelor, chanting Tommen's name. Inside the keep, Tyrion watched from an alcove as Tommen donned a cloak of black and gold. Margaery's cousins fussed with his collar. The boy giggled, nerves rattling. Tyrion approached, straightened the clasp. "Remember, strength and mercy." Tommen nodded. "I won't forget." The ceremony glittered. Tommen and Margaery recited vows. 7 crystal lamps bathed them in light. When Tommen placed the maiden's cloak over her shoulders, bells clanged jubilant. Outside, doves released from the belfry burst skyward, wings flashing white. Tyrion stood with the lords, clapping, yet a prickle traced his spine. He scanned the pews. Cersei sat head high, expression serene. Too serene. The feast followed in the gardens, sun-warming frost from arbor hedges. Musicians strummed, dwarfs performed tumbling jests, Tyrell courses paraded. Roast peacock, sugared lemons, trout in blackberry sauce. Tyrion tasted nothing of it. He kept watching Cersei, noting each sip she took, each servant who poured. No wine cup ever lingered near Tommen's lips without his mother sampling first. Perhaps, Tyrion mused, she feared his own toxins. As twilight painted the banners in gold, Cersei rose, summoned Tommen to dance. The boy flushed but obeyed. They circled gracefully. Applause swelled. On a high balcony, Pycelle's replacement Balabar looked on, face unreadable. Qyburn lingered near him like a crow awaiting spoils. When the dance ended, Cersei led Tommen from the dais with Margaery. "Royal bedding," men shouted, though Tommen's cheeks blazed. Margaery hushed them with coy laughter, promising songs of innocence. Tyrion excused himself from the table, shadowed the royal procession through corridors, until they reached the Queen's ballroom, repurposed as a private antechamber for vows of night. There he lingered outside. When the doors closed, he placed Bronn at the entrance with 2 torchbearers. He returned to the feast and found Cersei again at table, gloved hands clasped, goblet untouched. She nodded politely to every toasting lord. Tyrion slid into the chair beside her. She spoke first. "How lovely our brother's gold coins well spent." "Our," he echoed. And perhaps some coins yet saved, if the people see we can celebrate, without burning the treasury. Her eyes flicked to him. It cost less than wildfire. You mean Joffrey's death? He murmured. A long pause. Her lips curved faintly. I mean mistakes that set cities alight. He drained wine, remained silent. Behind them, fireworks burst above the gardens. Tyrol pyromancers, trivial flares. Embers rained like tiny comets. The crowd oohed. Tyrion pictured wildfire devouring ships, pictured Pacelle stiff on cold straw, pictured the map table sprouting fresh daggers each sunrise. He rose, bowed to Tywin, and took his leave. Returning to the tower, he found Davos Raven awaiting. A victory at Sea Dragon Point, Ironborn flagship captured, prisoners ransomed. Good news. A flicker of relief. He drafted commendations, sealed them with wax. Then he shut himself in the solar and stared at the hearth until flames blurred. When Shay arrived later, bearing leftover sweetbread, he shook his head. Not tonight. She frowned, touched his cheek, but left quietly. He was alone again with echoing thoughts, and the echo said dragons, tears of Lys, sister's scorn, father's cold blessing. The ledger of vices and victories tallied longer than any one man could reconcile. Lightning flickered far eastward, beyond sight. He knew somewhere across that horizon, a girl rode a blackening desert, with 3 winged hopes perched on a pole, dreaming of iron chairs. He wondered if she woke nightly to fears of invisible knives, to memory of cities burned behind her. Likely she did not. Likely fire left no room for doubt. The realm would need a weapon born of cunning, not conflagration, when she arrived. And Tyrion, for all his sins, knew cunning like sailors knew stars. He opened a fresh parchment, dipped quill, and began drafting letters. One to Maester Franken, requesting immediate study of dragon lore. One to Davos, urging capture of any Cersei corsairs bearing curious cargo. One to Lord Manderly, pledging grain shipments, in exchange for obsidian daggers whispered along the walls legends. As he wrote, he felt purpose steady his pulse, a sense not of redemption, but of forward motion. The board reset each dawn. Pieces lost, pieces gained. His task remained constant. Steer the game toward dawn, not marked by screams. Beyond the window, bells tolled the final hour of wedding festivities. Snow drifted again, soft as falling ash. Tyrion pressed sand to seal the letters, arranged them for Podrick, and finally allowed weariness to drag him toward bed. Shay had returned. She slept curled around the carved lion he had gifted Tommen long ago, as if guarding it. He slid beneath furs, careful not to wake her, and let his eyes close. In dreams he stood before an iron throne melted into slag, a tower of twisted blades glowing red under dragonfire. Upon it sat no king at all, only shadow. Yet around the ruin, green shoots sprouted, pale but determined. They pushed through ash toward weak sun. One shoot curved into a flower bud shaped like a lion's head, another bud shaped like a rose. When a cold wind swept, the buds shivered, but did not break. Tyrion reached to shield them, but his hands were flame, and when he tried to pull away, the buds clung and would not let go. He woke before dawn, heartbeat racing, snowflakes drifting through the open shutters. Shay stirred, draped an arm across his chest. "What troubles you?" she murmured. "Only the future refusing to behave." He kissed her brow, rose, and paced the chill floor. Outside the city lay muffled, roofs blanketed white. Footprints of the coming day awaited. He dressed, donned the chain of office heavy around his neck, and went to rouse the ravens. Weeks later, as white winds howled down from the neck, a raven arrived bearing a scrap of charred parchment, half the words blistered away. It came from the far eastern city of Astapor. The surviving lines read, "Dragon's breath, unsullied march, sorrow for kings." The parchment smelled of smoke. Tyrion stood on the ramparts, parchment held tight, snow snaking around his boots. Varys approached, muffled in sable. "Bad tidings?" "Eventual ones," Tyrion replied. He turned, scanning the sky where dawn painted faint amber. "Send word to every harbor. No ship bearing black and red banners shall pass uninvited. Any sailor glimpsing scaled wings over the summer sea earns 10 dragons' weight in silver. Varys inclined his head. The realm readies for a storm unlike any other. Tyrion curled the parchment, slid it into his sleeve. We have winter to survive first. Snow hissed against stone. Far below, Tommen's laughter echoed, faint as chimes. Child's glee flinging snowballs at knighting squires. Tyrion watched, a smile tugging despite the iron in his gut. There remained, somewhere beneath the politics and poisons, possibilities worth guarding. He vowed silently that if dragons came, they would find a kingdom not cowed but tempered, not squandered in futile rivalries, but prepared to endure. For all his flaws, Tyrion had learned one truth from wildfire and weddings. Light might birth destruction, but darkness thrived on neglect. He would not neglect the realm's beating heart, nor let his family's roar drown the softer voices of peace. As morning bells pealed over the snow-capped city, Tyrion Lannister turned toward the tower stair, cloak billowing like faded crimson flame. He descended one step at a time, into corridors already stirring with plans, into a world waiting to test every calculation he dared make. And each step rang out a promise forged in half-shadow and stubborn hope. That for whatever days remained to him, he would match dragons with wit, monsters with mercy, and night's long frost with the restless heat of an undaunted heart.